Nobody in that arena expected a teenage girl from a small Philippine province, broke, unknown, and barely holding herself together, to walk onto that stage and stop time itself. She had traveled thousands of miles with nothing but a worn-out dream and a voice she had no idea could shake the foundations of a television network. Charisse Pimpenko stepped onto that AGT stage in sneakers that didn't match, a borrowed outfit, and eyes that carried every scar her short life had already handed her. The audience shifted. A few people whispered. Someone laughed quietly in the back rows. Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, arms folded, face completely unreadable, already preparing his signature dismissal before she had opened her mouth even once. She told the judges her name. She told them she came from the Philippines. She told them she was 17. The audience gave a polite, half-hearted applause that felt more like pity than encouragement. Simon tilted his head. He didn't smile. He didn't nod. He simply stared at her the way a man stares at something he has already decided isn't worth his time. Then the music started. The first note she released was not a note. It was a confession. A wound split open in front of 20 million people. It rose from somewhere so deep inside her chest that the sound engineers later said they had to check their equipment because they thought something had gone wrong with the frequency levels. The crowd went completely still. The whispers stopped. The laughing stopped. Every single person in that arena felt the air change. Simon Cowell uncrossed his arms. Nobody noticed at first because they were all too busy experiencing something they would later struggle to describe in interviews, a physical sensation, like pressure behind the sternum, like something breaking loose inside the ribcage without permission. Charisse sang and it was not performance. It was survival. Every single note she hit was the sound of a girl who had been told her entire life that she was too small, too brown, too poor, too foreign to ever matter on a stage like this. By the second verse, a woman in the front row was crying. Then another. Then a man in the third row pressed his fist against his mouth and looked at the ceiling the way people do when they are desperately trying not to fall apart in public. Simon Cowell had not moved. But something in his face had shifted. The armor he wore, that famous wall of indifference that had survived decades of auditions, was cracking. She hit the bridge and the roof came off the building. The audience erupted in a standing ovation so thunderous that the stage monitors vibrated. People were on their feet before she had even finished the phrase. They were screaming and clapping and pressing hands to their hearts as if they needed to hold themselves together from the inside. And Charisse stood there in the middle of all of it, eyes closed, not performing for them anymore. She was singing for her mother back home in the Philippines who had sewn extra stitching into her only good dress so it would survive the journey. She was singing for every teacher who told her to be realistic. She was singing for the version of herself that almost didn't buy the ticket to America. When the last note left her lips, the silence that followed lasted exactly 4 seconds. 4 seconds where 20,000 people forgot how to breathe. Then the arena detonated. Simon Cowell sat completely still for a moment longer than everyone else. Then, slowly, without a word, he rose to his feet. The cameras caught it. The entire panel rose. The crowd screaming doubled. And Simon, the man who had made careers and destroyed them with a single sentence, the man who had never once been seen losing composure on national television, pressed 2 fingers to his lips and looked at this 17-year-old girl from the Philippines as if she had just rearranged something fundamental inside of him. When the noise finally settled enough for him to speak, his voice was quieter than anyone had ever heard it on that show. He said she was the most gifted natural vocalist he had ever encountered in his career. He said that without qualification. He said that without the usual carefully worded praise designed to protect his reputation. He said it the way a man says something that is true and he knows it and he is not afraid of what it costs him to admit it. Charisse Pimpenko did not cry on that stage. She had cried too many times already in too many places where no one was watching. Instead, she stood there and received it, the standing ovation, the tears of strangers, the validation of a man the world had decided was impossible to impress, and she received it with the quiet dignity of someone who had always known, in the smallest and most secret chamber of her heart, that this moment was coming. She just hadn't known if she would survive long enough to reach Philippines, who once performed at local Perry affairs for coins, who uploaded videos to the internet from a borrowed computer, who was told the world was too big for someone like her. That girl did not just win over an audience that night. She changed what was possible.